Welcome. I am thrilled to introduce Target to Zero to improve performance and outcomes. First, let me introduce myself. My name's Scarlett Williams. I've developed Target to Zero as an improved modality that has the potential to help many people. I'm a licensed professional counselor in private practice in Blacksburg, Virginia. Target to Zero can be used to improve performance. Target to Zero can be utilized as a preventative. Target to Zero can be utilized as a treatment. Target to Zero, trademark pending, is a stress reduction modality that includes movement therapy, EMDR, EMDR 2.0, and neuroscience research. How this works, let me explain it. When we experience something between bothersome to life-threatening, our brain performs a safety heuristic so that the details of that adverse event equal threat, which then equals symptoms. So this is how our brains work. It's a fundamental process that we all experience. Let me explain this in a little bit more detail. Say 12,000 years ago, you were at a watering hole. You were gathering some water, and there was not a mountain lion, but a saber-toothed tiger. If you survive that adverse event, your brain would remember not only the predator, but also minute details of the scene in order to keep you safe in future times, so that your brain would remember the angle of the sky, the angle of the sun in the sky, the ripple of the water, the way the breeze felt on your face. So that the next time you were in a similar situation and your brain noticed one of those details, it would then equate those details with threat, and it would cause some symptoms. So the next time you were at a similar watering hole and the water rippled similarly, or the breeze hit your face in a similar way, you might experience some anxiety. You might have an urge to run away. You might have a fast heartbeat. Your stomach might drop out. Okay? As an evolutionary perspective, hopefully 12,000 years ago you did run away so that you could have more kids so that we could be here now. So it's a survival mechanism that we have as humans. So the previous event, the encounter with the saber-toothed tiger 12,000 years ago, equals the current event, so that the details from the past event are storing and causing symptoms in the current situation, when the current situation is similar to the previous scenario or space or the event. Let me explain this in another way. So let's say that you experienced some bullying back in the 3rd grade, okay? Not only are you going to remember the bullies, but you're going to remember the texture of the carpet, the color of the wall, the particular mannerism in which the bullies pointed their fingers, okay? The facial expression of the bullies. So you're going to store all of that information as threat to help keep you safe in the future. So you're in your mid-30s, you're in a work meeting, and you notice over time, and in those work meetings, you kind of notice afterwards, I had a lot of anxiety in those work meetings, okay? Your conscious part of your brain's not going to remember that event, but that event of bullying is causing you to experience symptoms in your current situation, in your current time of life, so that if your work colleagues point their fingers in a similar way or make a similar facial expression, your brain's going to interpret that as threat and then cause symptoms. That's how our brains work. So that previous event is storing and causing symptoms in your current experience. Let me give you another example. Let's say that in 6th grade, you had a championship game, you kicked the ball, you missed the ball slightly, and then 3 plays later, the team lost the game. So in your mind, your 6th grade mind, you've always thought that if you had kicked the ball slightly differently, the team would have won the championship. So in that particular situation, you have always thought that it was your fault, that the team, it was your fault that you did not win the championship. Okay, so that information is going to be storing as adverse or life-threatening, right? Because it's like a competition, so it's going to have more charge to it. So it's going to be storing as an adverse event, as a bothersome event for you. You're going to remember, right, the color of the jerseys that your team and the other team had, the way that your foot hit the ground, the swish of the ball. So all these minute details can cause you negative effects in your current play. Fast forward to the future, okay? Now you're playing professional soccer. It's a championship game, State of the World Cup, and your team has on the same color jersey that you had on back in the 6th grade, okay? You're gonna go for the ball, right? And then because you're storing that information as adversely or negatively, it's gonna cause you to decrease out your level of play in the current situation. So you might misstep, okay, if the color of the jerseys activate you, or the swish of the ball, or the way that your foot hits the ground, or the position of your body moving through space. Okay, so previous events are negatively affecting us in our current performance. That's just how our brains work. So that previous event can be storing negatively and negatively affecting current performance. So our brain's performing a safety heuristic. So details of adverse events equal threat, which then equals symptoms. So I started doing EMDR in 2015, and over time, these are a cluster of symptoms that I've seen when people are coming in. And, back in 2015, 2016, I was saying, EMDR would be a helpful modality to use when clients, decided to come see me as in private practice here in Blacksburg, Virginia. So over time, these are the symptoms that patients report and the resulting cluster of common diagnoses that occur from adverse events happening in people's lives. Anxiety, ADHD, ADD, depression, sleep disturbance, chronic illness, chronic pain, OCD, performance anxiety, phobias, PTSD, complex PTSD, and personality disorders. So adverse events negatively affect us through the lifetime by causing our brains to have a lot of, our brains are associating a lot of threat in our current situation and causing us to have a large variety of symptoms. So we clear the details to clear the symptoms. Clear the details with target to zero. Target to zero, utilized as a treatment. Target to zero provides the safety heuristics explanation for adverse memory storage. Target to zero provides a pre and post inventory for symptom reduction. It includes neuroscience research, movement therapy, EMDR, and EMDR 2.0. So with EMDR standard protocol, there's 8 phases of treatment. EMDR 2.0, which is developed by researchers in the Netherlands, modifies phases 2 and phases 4 of EMDR standard protocol. Target to zero modifies phases 2 through 7 of a standard EMDR protocol. So I really loved EMDR so much, and it's so very helpful for most of my clients. over time. So when I started doing EMDR, I started thinking about like, how does this work? How can I make it faster? How can I improve this technique? So over time, I've been improving the technique. So this past year, I applied for an IRB to do a retrospective review of an improved method of EMDR. So what I did was compare 12 patients that I had done standard EMDR with 12 patients that I had done my innovative protocol target to zero with. And what I was looking for was like, how fast is EMDR and how fast is target to zero? How long does it take me to clear out one target for people? Because when I reviewed the literature, there wasn't, I didn't really find anything that really spoke to working in private practice or managed care where you have a very brief period of time with clients, 45 minutes to 60 minutes, right? There were a couple of research papers that talked about doing intensives or working inpatient with people and having 90 minutes or so to work through trauma targets with people. But, I work in private practice. I want something really fast and something that's effective and works very well for people. So what I did was look at the average, average the number of minutes for targets. So the number of minutes to clear one target with standard protocol was 180 minutes. So that was on average 3 hours to clear one target for a client. Okay, with target to zero, my rate right now is 20 minutes to clear a target. So that's quite a big difference in amount of time to clear out a memory for a person. So total number of targets cleared for the 12 clients doing standard EMDR, it was 2 targets cleared. And then for target to zero, it was 9 targets cleared. So because this is a lot faster and a lot easier on folks, they're able to do many more targets and their symptoms decrease out very quickly in being able to do that. With standard EMDR, number of patients needing stabilization, that meant that, doing EMDR was kind of rough on them. And the next week when they came in, we kind of had to provide some stabilization services for them, was 2. So 2 out of 12 needed stabilization services during our treatment time together in order to continue with their EMDR. With target to zero, 0 clients needed stabilization services. It was much faster and much easier for people to get through their targets at a very efficient and effective rate. So reduction in symptoms. So when I started doing EMDR, I didn't use a pre and post inventory. So my retrospective review is from 2018 to 2022. So I really wasn't getting really good at using a pre and post until 2022. I wish I regret that, but anyways, you learn as you go. So when I went back and reviewed the files, I could only find one patient that I had done a pre and post for with the EMDR standard protocol. So that one person's symptom decrease with the CTI was 28%. Okay, with the target to zero, 100% of patients decrease their PTSD symptoms by 84%. And then another reduction in symptoms for CPTSD was the one person decreased 20% with EMDR standard protocol, and 100% of patients decreased their CPTSD symptoms by 83%. So this is just me doing it, but right in my work with standard EMDR and then innovating the protocol, this protocol is 9.5 times faster than EMDR, or 86% faster than standard EMDR. So it's much faster, more effective. It works really, really well. Here is a number to kind of see, it's a graph. And I have to thank Ryan Cobb and Alex Hanlon from the Virginia Tech in helping me analyze the data and making all these beautiful graphs, because there is no way I could do that. Well, I guess I could, but that would take a lot of time for me to learn how to do that. But you know, their analysis is, they make really great graphs. They know how to do statistics, and I don't. So here is one about the average number of minutes to clear a target for target to zero. So the average number of minutes you can see is 20 minutes for target to zero, which is orange, and the average number of minutes to clear for EMDR standard protocol is 180 minutes, and that's in the blue. And the average for standard protocol for those 12 patients was between an hour, maybe a little less than an hour, to 420 minutes. So sometimes the target took a really long time to do. I like to use the CTI as a pre and post inventory for folks. So, right, I work in private practice with the general population. So when people are coming in to me, mostly they're saying they have, you know, when I ask them what kind of symptoms they're having, they say they have depression symptoms or anxiety symptoms. So, you know, that's kind of what I'm working with. But when we look at the CTI, we find that patients really have a lot of post-traumatic stress, as well as complex PTSD. So this kind of lets me know we really need to be reconceptualizing what people are experiencing and how we kind of classify different ways, I don't know, different ways to talk about the symptoms that we experience as humans. So the CTI, and I started using this because it really has, it's 20 questions, and it really nicely talks about the symptoms that decrease out when people reconsolidate memories. So I'll just read a few of these. So having bad dreams or nightmares, being super alert, feeling defeated or worthless, feeling distant from other people, difficulty experiencing positive emotions, and then the it rates for intensity. So how intense are these feelings and symptoms, and also frequency. How often do you experience these symptoms? Feeling that you're bad or something's wrong with you, having difficulty maintaining relationships, feeling unreal as if living in a dream, blaming yourself for the stressful experience, you know, thinking it's my fault, having outbursts of anger or irritable behavior. So this is a really lovely inventory that quickly assesses for, you know, different symptoms that people are having. So here is another great graph from Ryan Cobb and Alex Hanlon at Virginia Tech Center for Biostatistics and Health Data Science. And thanks to them for their statistical analysis once again. So here's target to zero decrease in PTSD symptoms, okay, for folks. So pre and post, you can see those numbers really go down. And then with standard EMDR, I just have one person, wish I had more. Anyways, hindsight's 2020. And that number sort of goes more towards the side. So it's not decreasing out as much. Target to zero decreased PTSD symptoms by 84% in 3 to 7 hours of treatment for 100% of patients. 11 of the 12 met the cutoff criteria for PTSD, which was 1.72 for the CTI inventory. Here's another graph for decrease in complex trauma, complex PTSD. So you can see too, those numbers are really decreasing out. And then with standard EMDR, it's kind of sideways. So anyways, those are the results. Target to zero, decreased complex post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms by 83% in 3 to 7 hours of treatment for 100% of patients. Pending publication. When I finish with clients, I like to ask people for a review or testimonial, like, what would you tell people? Because this is not right, like most people in the world don't use EMDR. Most people use CBT when they're coming for help from therapists, okay? So I like to get the feedback to put that out there to the general public to help educate people about how this process works and what's different. So this is from you doing Target to Zero. I used to have a movie playing in my head on repeat. Now, after doing Target to Zero, it's like I'm reading the back of the DVD. I thought that some of these symptoms were part of who I was, my personality, like going numb and having a low tolerance for what life throws at you. I thought my having a small window of tolerance was part of who I was, but you can change that. It's incredible. Target to Zero is like refinishing furniture. You strip off all the glop and get to who you really are. After 2 sessions, 90% of what bothered me for the past 20 years doesn't bother me anymore. I feel a lot lighter. Anything that happens in my life, I can handle it. Those memories are still there, but don't cause an emotional reaction anymore. Target to Zero is life-changing. I was at my wit's end trying to get rid of this depression. Scarlett's Target to Zero has changed this for me. Target to Zero as a preventative. Prevention is worth a pound of cure. When the level of disturbance decreases, symptoms decrease. Target to Zero, adverse event stress reduction technique, was developed as a PTSD preventative for Ukrainian mental health professionals. March 6, 2022 through 7/17/2022. So let me tell you how this happened. So when the war started in the Ukraine, I was looking at the news and thinking, life is hard enough anyways. We just have been through COVID. We're all burnt out from COVID and life is hard, right? From COVID, we're probably all, if you do a survey of everybody around the world, we're probably experiencing a lot more depression and anxiety having been through a pandemic, okay? That makes life harder, right? So when we look at outcomes for people across time, all of our outcomes might not be quite so great having experienced a pandemic, if that's going to store adversely for us, okay? So then I thought, add a war on top of that, and that's really negatively affecting people. So I reached out on the EMDR community membership page to see if anybody was doing anything in the Ukraine because I wanted to help out. So I thought I would be doing one of the group protocols where there'd be a main facilitator and then I would be a side facilitator. Because in the group protocols, the assist protocol, you have out of 10 people, you figure 9 of those people will get through that protocol pretty well, and 1 person's going to need individual assistance because the memory is going to be so overwhelming, they're not going to be able to get through it, and they're going to need assistance to do individual EMDR with that particular person. So that's what I thought I was going to be doing. So I didn't get any directions. I got a Zoom link with, I got a Zoom link in Russian. No directions. I thought, okay, it's all going to work out. It's going to be fine. Showed up. It was 17 Ukrainians, a translator who I could not have asked for a better translator for the 23 sessions that I provided, and me. So I had a brief moment of panic. I was like, uh-oh, there's 70 people here. They're experiencing a war. What am I going to do? Because I thought I was going to be an assistant facilitator. No, it's just me and 17 people. So I had a brief moment of panic, and then I thought, okay, I'm just going to utilize my Target to Zero technique, adapt it to a group protocol, and reduce out symptoms for people. And that's what I did. Target to Zero Adverse Event Stress Reduction Protocol was able to serve 93 mental health professionals. 23 sessions were provided by Zoom. There were 1 to 17 participants per session. It had a 99% success rate with only 1 participant requiring individual follow-up services. It worked pretty well. Just a few of the preliminary results, because I haven't had this data analyzed yet. The initial level of disturbance for folks was between 4 and 10. It decreased out to 0 to 3. The longest session was 48 minutes. 1 participant went from a 9 to a 0 in 9 minutes, 2 participants from an 8 to a 0 in 15 minutes, and 1 participant from a 6 to a 0 in 9 minutes. So this is a very fast protocol that can be utilized with groups to prevent PTSD from occurring. And that was my reason for doing this, was to decrease out symptoms that people were experiencing from their current adverse experiences they were experiencing, to help improve their outcomes, having to experience one of the most adverse experiences that we would all experience, being in a war. Some reviews from participants. So when I would finish the sessions, right, we would chat a lot, or I would, right, give people different techniques they could use to help themselves in this extreme adverse situation, and give them strategies to help their clients too. So with one particular therapist who had been deployed and come back from a deployment and had seen, I don't know, maybe mass graves, I think, that time. So when we started the session, when we finished doing the session, she said that running was triggering me, but it's not now. Another therapist said that when we finished, he said, I was surprised that this works. I can't believe it works so fast. And then my last session, I only had 1 participant, but you know, the therapist could choose who they wanted to work with, and I had repeat customers for many of my sessions. So I had this particular therapist, and I was asking her, you know, how was she utilizing Target to Zero in the Ukraine, because I wrote the protocol up and gave it to the Ukrainians so they could use, because right, everything they could use to help themselves is definitely worthwhile. So she said that clients come in highly anxious. I use Target to Zero with them. They calm down. Then I can do Gestalt therapy with them. So it makes me so proud and happy to have developed a protocol that can be utilized to help calm people down so that they're able to think more clearly for themselves, and problem solve better. Target to Zero can be used to improve performance. So once again, we don't realize this, but our previous events negatively affect us. So even if you're playing at a premier level, if you're storing information as bothersome to life-threatening, and with competition, the likelihood of you storing information from bothering to life-threatening is going to increase, because there's a lot of pressure on it, right? It's like, I want to win, I want to be the best, right? So there's a lot of extra charge there for games and sporting events. So that previous experience can be storing negatively, even if you're playing at a premier level. It's just how our brains work. So take the advantage, clear memories of past performances and particular moves to Zero to improve performance. Here's what clients are saying. After a couple of serious accidents, I was hesitant to race. Target to Zero helped me to recover my speed. This is from an executive that works at one of the foremost Fortune 500 companies in the world. All the background noise has decreased out. I was able to map out the entire year for my company and confidently state, this is the plan. So this is the thing that I really love the most about Target to Zero and reconsolidating memories, is it, and what this client was saying is it decreases the background noise out. So it really helps to improve clarity of thought. And that's what I want for all of us, is that we're able to take in information from our current situation, figure out what all of our options are, and then choose the best option for each current situation so that we're able to think clearly through and have the best outcomes for ourselves. That is really the power of this modality. Speed was not my goal in doing Target to Zero with Scarlett. However, it is definitely a bonus. I'm running my morning route 4 minutes faster. No longer do I slow down towards the end of the finish line. Improve outcomes with Target to Zero. When we look at adverse events and their negative effects, we find that adverse events cause many detrimental things through the lifespan. So this is a study that's been going on since the 1990s with the CDC and Kaiser Permanente, which is an HMO out in California, or they started in California, now they're in many different areas. Okay, and what they found, what they were looking at was how do adverse events in childhood affect people through the lifespan. These studies have been redone around the world. I think there's a recent one out of China when I was looking a few months ago about most current research. Okay, so these adverse childhood experiences negatively affect us through the lifespan. So they disrupt neurodevelopment. They cause social, emotional, and cognitive impairment. They cause more adoption of health risk behaviors. There's higher levels of disease, disability, and social problems in adulthood and early mortality. So adverse events negatively affect us through the lifespan. Okay, we have these studies that have been going on since the 1990s. So what we want to do is reverse these negative effects by putting things in place to change our outcomes, to improve our outcomes when we experience adverse events. Now, the adverse events and the ACEs are doing a lot of work in prevention to prevent some of these things from happening. Okay, we can't prevent everything that's tough from happening because we're mortal and people die and accidents happen. Okay, so we can't prevent 100% from happening, and kudos to all the organizations and agencies that are trying to prevent those things from happening. Okay, what we also want to be doing is just acknowledging that adverse events negatively affect us through the lifespan. It causes a lot of symptoms, and know that we can reconsolidate these memories so that decreases out the number of symptoms that we're having, because the adverse events, the details of those adverse events equal threat in our brains, which then equals symptoms. When we clear those memories out, decrease how much those memories are bothering us, and go to zero with them, people are no longer experiencing those symptoms. So we have this body of research that tells us that. We have a body of research with EMDR that tells us that EMDR reduces symptoms. We've got the Target to Zero retrospective review, and we've got the work for preventing PTSD with working in the Ukraine, okay, and other research articles that are talking about preventing symptoms utilizing the group protocols from EMDR. So we know we can, and we need to be doing this because we want to be in the prevention business as opposed to the treatment business. So when we look at dollar amounts, it seems like when we look at dollar amounts, things change. Okay, people actually start saying, hey, this costs us a lot of money. Let's do things differently. So there's a lot of research talking about the impact on GDP for the ACEs. So the health cost of ACEs, adverse childhood events in North America and Europe, were estimated at 1.3 trillion annually. So that's a lot of money going to treat adverse events and their negative effects across the lifespan. So that's a colossal amount of effort and money that's being spent on ACEs. This represents 3.55% of the GDP for North America and 2.67% of the GDP for Europe. So that is a colossal tragedy that happens ongoing on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis. We want to be in the prevention business and really decrease these symptoms out for people. In my retrospective review, the complex trauma inventory assesses for PTSD and CPTSD, so complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So what I want to look at right now are current PTSD statistics and helping everybody understand that these statistics don't have to be here, right? That we can really decrease out these symptoms by using Target to Zero, by reconsolidating or consolidating memories of adverse events. The symptoms greatly decrease out for people. So for athletes, 13 to 25% of athletes experience PTSD. In the military, 10% of men and 19% of women experience PTSD. First responders, it's 5 to 15%. Healthcare workers, up to 40%. ICU nurses, up to 48%. Educators, 11 to 25%. And children, when children experience an adverse event, 3 to 15% of girls and 1 to 6% of boys develop PTSD from one adverse experience that they experience. Okay? So there are many symptoms that go along with having PTSD. The complex trauma inventory shows 20 symptoms that people experience. People also experience symptoms of anxiety and depression along with these symptoms, as well as a host of other mental health diagnoses that come from adverse events. We can decrease out these symptoms and improve the outcomes for people when people have experienced adverse events. It's very difficult to get through life and not experience adverse events. We want everybody to know that this is how our brain works and that we can put this intervention in place to improve outcomes, to prevent symptoms from occurring if we do it very quickly after adverse events occur, and to utilize for treatment once events have happened. Okay, when we look at the different groups of economic groups, right, or different groups of people that are working and are experiencing PTSD, it sort of makes sense. Because when you work with the general public, you're working with 100% of the population, and you're going to see things and experience things that are adverse. Like there's no way around it. When you're working in education, when you're working in healthcare, when you're a first responder or working, serving in the military, like you're going to see intense, profound things that are going to be disturbing sometimes. We can utilize Target to Zero as a preventative to clear out those memories very quickly after they occur, so that those details are not going to be bothering you and storing where they're causing a lot of symptoms. So we can do that, and we want to be doing that for people. So current PTSD treatments. So this is off of the Veterans Affairs current PTSD treatments, and if you have PTSD as a veteran, what kind of therapy do you want to choose? So there's cognitive processing therapy, EMDR, and prolonged exposure therapy. So of these three modalities, Veterans Affairs says 53 out of 100 people will no longer have PTSD symptoms after they do each of these protocols, okay? And that's for 6 weeks to 6 months of therapy. Now, this is a little presumptuous of me to say, but I'm going to put it out there anyways. If we look at Target to Zero, with my preliminary results, we have 100% of people decreasing their symptoms, PTSD symptoms, by 84%, and 82 decreasing symptoms by for CPTSD in 3 to 7 sessions. Okay, so my guess is when I start training in people this, it will not be 100% because nothing's 100%, right? Like when I start training people, training other therapists and they do it, it probably won't be at 100%. It'll be less than that. But my guess is it'll probably be around 90. So if 90% of people could decrease out their symptoms by in the 80%, that would be great. That would be a game changer for helping people when they've experienced adverse events, or not even waiting until they're having those symptoms, but using the Target to Zero preventative technique to prevent those symptoms from occurring when companies or organizations do their debrief or their critical incident review after something has happened. So this protocol could be added into those times to help prevent these symptoms from occurring in the first place. Training for mental health professionals, contact to schedule. I'm going to do a 2-day training on Target to Zero for therapists that are EMDR trained in November. I'll also be doing trainings for mental health professionals that aren't trained in EMDR, and that'll be a 5-day training, and that'll be in the future, probably January of this coming year, January 2024. Stress PTSD prevention training for professional and organizations, contact to schedule. And this training, I go over the preventative PTSD protocol that I developed in the Ukraine, as well as several other techniques that professionals can utilize to help themselves to prevent symptoms from occurring in the first place when you're working in an organization or serving in the military, when you're working in situations where adverse events happen, sometimes on a daily basis. So you really want to utilize these protocols to help yourself to prevent symptoms from occurring, and also to prevent burnout from happening in your chosen profession. And I do this training for professionals and for organizations. So please contact me to schedule. Improve performance for teams and organizations, contact to schedule. In this modality, I function as a coach, and I'm utilizing the Target to Zero protocol to decrease out how much different moves for athletes is bothering them to improve performance. So that works in a coaching capacity, and it's available for individuals as well as teams. Please contact me for consultation and training at targettozero@gmail.com, for Target to Zero services in person through as a counseling technique. Please contact me at scarlettwilliamslpc@gmail.com. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.